Okay, so I'm just gonna so I what I usually do is I'll do like a I'll go by like publishers and then so I was trying to say two things, but I was like I just don't start to say something. But my first thing, the second thing was like, oh yeah, you gotta mention this first, and now it's all mixed together. But anyways, so what I normally do as I go by publisher, for the with the reading recommendations, and I say this is good, this is bad, this is blank, this is that, and usually like sometimes we don't go through three goods in a row and then three bads in a row. But this time around, and probably will start doing in the future. I did get a comment saying this is that I probably I don't want to say criticizing. That's too strong a word. Um, recommending, recommending that I list the books. Now I don't. I'm gonna try and put them. I'm gonna try and put them in the description this time. But when I have 25, well, actually 25 plus, I have 30 books to review. Writing all those down and doing like good, bad, ugly. I'm not go by good, bad, and ugly. I'll probably go like great, good, bad, and ugly. Because some of these books and some of the books I read just on a normal basis, they're not always like good or great. They're not always great. They're good, but not bad. It's not bad, but not great, so it's good. And then ugly is usually like absolutely deplorable. Like saying it as bad as this book is insulting the other book. No matter how bad that book was, this book insults that book as being in the same category. But I also will do is I'm also going to go in order. So the first one, all these are recommending. I'm recommending, so I actually can't really put them in the. Actually, I can't put them in the thing because they're all going to be good. So there you go. And I'll also be showing what the book is. I think another thing is I don't have like chapters, and I probably never will do that. So you don't know like what I'm talking about each book. So that's probably what I'll do is I'll say, here's what I talked about in this week's comic reviews, and I'll be doing an order. So when I talk about like say Spider-Man Volume 1 first, I'll put that in first. And I talk about Fantastic Four, and then do Fantastic Four next. So I'll be going in chronological order. Is all I have to say. First one up is first two up are the books I'm be lending to giving to my nephew for his birthday. And the first one up is kind of a no-brainer as to why I'm giving him this is the Super Mario Adventures comic series. This is one I honestly could not see myself reading again. It wasn't bad, don't get me wrong, I still recommend it, but much like the movie, I can't see me watching the movie or reading this again for at least a very long time. And there's no point in me having this comic if I'm not gonna read it again. And my nephew will have a lot more fun with this book than I did. And that's also because of how much it's made for him too. Like that's the target demographic of this comic. Come on. I'm like, wait, blanket. There we go, much better. Lighting was bad. I almost knocked over my fan because the blanket. I was trying to get it over the iPad and then out of the way of the fan, and I almost hit the fan over. But anyways, so much like the movie, I still like the movie. I still like the comic. No, I should say I like the movie. But much like the movie, it takes a lot of inspiration. So if you watch the movie, read the comic right after, you'll be noticing a lot of similar plot beats. A lot of similarities in plot. Now, it's not one of those. Obviously, yes, the princess gets kidnapped, that kind of thing, but it plays around with it a bit too, like the movie did. And there's a lot of the characters act the same way as they do in the movie. But I'm more talking about how more outlandish, more like how, for example, the wizard guy, I think is in here, right? He has to be in here. I know he is. And they actually have a Mario rap in here too, like they had in the opening of the movie. But it's not the same one. It's a different one, but it's also rap. So a lot of small similarities there, and some are bigger than others. But it was one of those things where I was like, hey, I wonder if the movie took inspiration from the comic. And I honestly I honestly wonder that, and not just in the obvious sense oh yeah, well Princess Peach gets but she doesn't get kidnapped in the movie. It's Luigi. But yeah, someone gets kidnapped. They gotta save that person, and in the movie it's Luigi. In the comic it's Peach at first. And then goes into pretty out in its territories. It's pretty entertaining. I will say that it does definitely try more than the movie did. That's another thing. It tries a lot more than the movie did. The movie was just it's a huge ass commercial for Mario. This really isn't. So I would recommend picking up this book. If you like the movie, you'll dig this comic book. But it's only $14.99. Honestly, for a book like this, that's a good price. It's widely average comic book. It's magazine size, and it's pretty thick too. It's 100 pages, but it's like the build up of the paper quality too is better. Because I would say this would be 144 pages if you asked me how long this book was. Well, without looking inside of it, I would say 144 to almost 200. So, or 150 to round it. Next up, we have the other book I'm going to give to my nephew for his birthday, and that's The Avengers Kree-Skrull War. Now, the main reason why I'm giving him this is, yes, I can't see myself reading this again, but also they gave it to you for free on the Marvel app during the pandemic. So this one I just found very dated. And this, now for me, I do like the Silver Age of comics. It's a very hit or miss. But when it hits, it hits, and when it misses, it misses. And it kind of like, it's one of those things where I can't really say that I really like the Silver Age of comics. If I had like a tier list of all the ages of comics, which that's kind of hard to do because the modern age is still going on since 1985, right? Unless everyone else has their own headcanon version of what age we're in of comics. But the Silver Age, I would have to, like, I would probably put it in C tier, but I mean to put it in B tier. I wouldn't know where to put it. Because when it hits so well that you're like, well, putting it in the C tier is insulting. But then I'll read something like Avengers Kree-Skrull War, and I'll be like, well, actually... Now, this is not a bad comic. It's not the worst Silver Age book I have read. That probably goes to a lot of DC books. Marvel had it made in the Silver Age. The DC Comics just, like, not struggled, but DC Comics was just, like, way too dated. Like, that Justice League book was just the biggest pain in the ass I have had reading a comic in a long time. That was a while ago, too. It was when the Suicide Squad movie came out. That's what piqued my interest. I found out that Starro had made his first appearance in the Justice League comic my library had. So it's like, oh, I'll check that out. And I was like, that's why. Did I read it again? I think I started to read it and gave up. I don't know if I had done that or I decided to power through it. I don't know. But this one is more in the middle, I would say, honestly. It's not terrible. It's not the worst Silver Age book you read, but it's not one I would recommend as your first Silver Age comic. Yeah, I know it takes Avengers, 87? 89? But the Silver Age was good about like, it wasn't... It was a lot easier to jump in whenever and wherever for a Silver Age book than it is for now, I would say. It's still, you'll still be asking up a lot of questions, but not as many as if you pick up, like, Daredevil 30 right now. And then the new Daredevil series, the Chip Zdarsky run, picking up issue 30 of Daredevil, you're going to be a lot more confused than you pick up issue 30 of the Silver Age series. If you know what, if you, but it was just okay. Not when I ever see myself reading again. It was kind of a chore to get through, but it wasn't absolutely arduous, and I'm glad I read it. And I still do recommend it. Because not only to get your own, to form your own opinion, but everyone else seems like a Silver Age. I think only Comic Pop, and off the top of my head, the only one I can think of that doesn't like a Silver Age, like me, is Comic Pop. And to the extent that I don't like a Silver Age. Like, obviously, not everyone likes everything that came out of the Silver Age. A lot more people, I feel, like the Silver Age, like a lot more than I do. It's a lot less hit or miss with them. Then we have Silver... The Silver Age is so hard to fully explain what I mean, but using the word dated, just... Honestly, that phrase is dated itself. Because it's like, okay, yeah, dated, okay, cool. Everyone else is saying that. What do you mean by that? And then it's hard to explain. So I struggle at saying that. And it's not something that I could ever, like, get on, like, if I really thought about it, I could tell you guys. It's just one of those things you can't really explain without the person that's asking the question having read the Silver Age books themselves. Next up is Civil War, a comic that I have read like 500 times, and it is just and each time I read it, I like it even more. And that continued this time around, my 501st reading of Civil War. This is one of probably my biggest unpopular opinion, but more and more people seem to agree with me than don't at this point in time. that the Civil War is a almost underrated comic. Like, I went overhated, underrated, like overhated. Um, I feel like it's overhated. I feel like a lot of people give this comic too much shit because, oh, it's heavy-handed. Yeah, so is a lot of books that get praised to nowadays. Like Nubia Real One. Yeah, I almost want to say the same people that like Civil War, that hate Civil War, probably liked Nubia Real One. And they hate Civil War for the reasons they like Nubia Real One. Oh, I see myself represented in this comic. Oh, this comic is so, like, diverse and different, and it's like, it does political commentary really well, and all that, and this does political commentary very well too. I would argue it's not too heavy-handed. Also, like I don't like saying that is heavy-handed, but that's just what other people have said, and I'm kind of like not necessarily regurgitating it, but I can understand where they're coming from. Yes, but also no. This is fantastic comic book. They had given this to us along with Avengers, Avengers book I just showed off during the pandemic, but I almost don't want to give this one away. And honestly, the only two people I would give this away to, one, that person can get the library themselves, and the second is my nephew, and this is a bit too old for him. Like, it's a bit. I'll have to wait a few years. Probably when he's 10 years old, I'll give it to him for his 10th birthday. I would say it's 10 odd book. I'm very like I'm the kind of guy who understands, like, when I was 10, I could have watched an R-rated movie just fine. But I know not everyone is the same, but, like, I've never really understood, like, the MPA age ratings, honestly. Something like Preacher, which I will be reviewing, I will obviously probably have him wait until he's 15 to read that, but something like Civil War, it's a bit too violent and heavy and, like, dark for him to read now. And honestly, all of what I've given him has been Silver Age stuff and Kitty stuff. Like, the only thing I've given him that wasn't Silver Age, off the top of my head, was that Spider-Man Venom Double Trouble book, which is for kids. So it's mainly what I give him. For those of you who don't know how old he is, he's turning 7 this year. So, to put it into perspective. Spider-Man: The Death of Gene DeWolf. Really damn good comic. It has everything I like about 80s comics, all rolled into one. It is a fantastic comic. If you're not as big a fan of Spider-Man as everyone else in the world is, I would say pick this up. And you know who I'm talking about. We have a subscriber who's not a big fan of Spider-Man, and I think what I should do is if I ever do gifts for subscribers, I should just give him a whole bunch of the best Spider-Man comics and give those to him. But he's probably read those too. And it's obviously his opinion. Like, I don't. Obviously, like, I'm not gonna shit on his opinion. He probably likes books that I hate, and vice versa. So, it's his opinion. But it's one of those things that, like, kind of, it's more funny than annoying, if anything. Like, it's kind of like, I mean, he's the only person I've ever heard of who has like a major complaint with Spider-Man comics, and it's understandable. I understand where he's coming from, but I was like, man, you're missing out. Next up is Marvels, a fantastic comic book, my favorite Kirby Busiek book. I read this book 5 times. I would read it more often if each issue wasn't so damn long. The 0th issue was like, 14 pages, but after that, issues 1 through 4 are 50 pages. And issue 0 is 100%. If I had to give any complaint to Marvels, I would say issue 0 is completely unnecessary and honestly very boring. But everything else is fantastic. Marvels is an absolutely phenomenal comic, and I highly recommend you pick this up. If you've not read it already, it's worth the $24.99 price tag, along with that Civil War book too. That was almost the same price for Civil War. Rogue Volume 2, and this one's written by a different author, and I found that funny when I found that out, because let's say I got this as a comic haul book. Like, I bought this book myself and I showed it off on the comic haul. I would just naturally assume that it was the same writer. And yeah, okay, I look inside to double check. That I do that sometimes for the artist, but I wouldn't have known. I would say it's the same writer as Volume 1. But the book itself is extremely underrated. It is such a damn good comic. It's the best of early 2000s Marvel is in here. I really like that early 2000s Marvel, and this proves the reason for why that is. Absolutely recommend if you've not read that book Next up is Spider-Girl, the complete collection. Another big surprise, honestly. This one I started out, and I probably would give this a pick of the week. I'd probably give that to Spider-Man, Death of Jean DeWolf. If I had to separate them between library books and books I own to go even like more into specifications, I would pick this as a pick of the week. So it's an honorable mention for pick of the week, if anything. This was absolutely fantastic. My only complaint was that it rivaled the Silver Age with how wordy this comic is. Like I almost want to say some Silver Age comics are less wordy than this book is. They cram that dialogue into every page. I honestly I feel like I was reading a novel at times. But it's not bad. Like, once we get over those that minor complaint that doesn't really matter, it's still a damn good comic. I highly recommend you check out. I would say wait until the next sale because each volume is $20 digitally and then out of print physically unless you get volume 4. So like even that, I would say that's a bit too much for this book. That even though I really liked it, I'd say that's a bit too much. It's not Civil War after all. I mean, even Civil War, that was $20. That'd be a highway robbery. At least Spider-Girl is a 400 plus page book. So it makes sense why it's that expensive, but it's just kind of like still come on. Next up, we have The Wicked and Divine. I have read this comic 500. I've read this book 50 times, and it's just as good as the last 49. This is an indie book. This is mature. It's mature rated content. I do want to point that out because I'm so stuttery. I automatically assume you guys know that, but some of you guys probably never really heard of the series at all. But I highly recommend this series. It's a good fantasy book. It's by Kieran Gillen. If you even sort of like his Young Avengers book, you'll love this. Then we have Grant Morrison's Nameless, a comic that is very Grant Morrison at his finest. Well, not at his finest, but at his most definitive. Like if you think of Grant Morrison, this is like kind of what I mean. Like we read, like someone could read this without knowing who wrote it, and they would automatically, and they knew Grant Morrison, they snap their fingers and be like, "Yep, it's Grant Morrison," and they'd be right. It's very confusing, very all over the place, but very entertaining. Highly recommend for high recommendation for Grant Morrison fans. And honestly, if you read that and you like it, you'll like anything Grant Morrison makes as written. For the most part. Dial H for Hero, Volume 2. While I did not like this as much as I did the first volume, I still do recommend this book because I liked Volume 1 so much. And it's kind of like you might as well read Volume 2. I can't really tell you guys, but I didn't like Volume 2. I liked it in Volume 1 because everything in Volume 2 was in Volume 1, and it's maybe it was just overstayed its welcome, maybe, because it was just I feel like they could have, I don't know, but really good comic series, not really good, it's a good comic series, not super underrated, and I would say check it out, maybe a discount, but honestly $16.99 for each volume is not a bad price at all. Next up, we have Shazam by Jeff Johns. Fantastic comic book, and you can tell why they chose this to adapt into 2018 movie. That's because this is the best one they could have done. Probably just Power Shazam Jerry Ordway one, but this is probably my favorite one. This goes to show how good of a writer Jeff Johns is, and how he really misses. I've not read anything by Jeff Johns I haven't liked. I even like Doomsday Clock. Next up is the first 2 volumes of The Flash. The reason why I have the first 2 is that they have the first 2 in my local library. And I have 2 of this. It's like, oh, volumes 1, 2, and I get them all at once. But fantastic run. This is, along with Shazam, I don't mind that they had the New 52 because we would have missed out on this book. Like the New 52, honestly, is worth what we got. All the absolutely deplorable, all the mistakes that the New 52 has made is worth it for a series like The Flash and Shazam. That's how much I like this series. Is that I'm willing to excuse every mistake the New 52 has made because we still got books like The Flash and Shazam and Scott Snyder's Batman run from New 52. We got the first 2 volumes of Teen Titans. And this is not as the best New 52 book, but we go a hell of a lot worse. And I honestly really like this book. I feel like, much like with Civil War, it's a bit overhated. I understand why people don't like it, but I still like. If you don't think of these characters as the same characters you grew up with if you grew up with the Marv Wolfman run, or even with the TV show, it's not the same as those characters. They feel very different. But it's a new 52. They tried to make they want to make it a bit different, and if you get over that, and I feel like you enjoy it. I still like it at that point. It's not absolutely incredible, and honestly, the second time I've read it, I liked it a tad bit less than I did the first time. But I can't remember how I felt about Volume 2, because Volume 2 was where things are a little bit like the water's a bit more choppier there, but I still liked it. It's one of those books that I know is a borderline a guilty pleasure. I say borderline, I still enjoyed it. So, Batgirl Birds of Prey Volume 3, like Volumes 1 and 2, I love this series. They should have adapted this into the movie. Because that movie would have been at least better received by critics and audiences if they adapted that comic book series. Global Frequency, I liked it a bit better this time. There's more stories. There's more, I would say, because it's an anthology tale. Each anthology, 12-issue maxi series anthology. So each issue is a different character, and so not every issue was as good as the other. But I would say I liked 90% of the stories here. So like two or three issues I didn't like. The rest I thought were fine. Day Tripper, fantastic comic book. Check it out right now. I'm not gonna say anything else. I want you guys going in blind. Check it out. It's free for Prime members. If you have Amazon Prime and the Kindle app, get it right now. Along with this, Preacher, Volume 1. I've reread this book a lot of times. I've read it 500 times, and it's just such a phenomenal book. I may just buy this book myself. May even chip into the omnibus. Not soon, obviously. Not anywhere near soon. Probably like a year from now, at least. But it's a phenomenal comic book that I would... Even though my local library has all 6 volumes of this series, the entire series itself, I almost feel like I need to own the series. My favorite comic book of all time. Like, hands down. And finally, last but not least, All-Star Batman and Robin. I had so much fun with this book. Just as much fun as I did the first time. As I did the second time, as I did with the first time. It is just so off the walls, but in the best way possible. It's never boring. It never overstays its welcome. I want Frank Miller to finish off this series. And yes, obviously it's not a good comic. Obviously it is very... And it's kind of almost insulting to Batman as a character, and Frank Miller almost insults, borderline insults our readers by giving them a different Batman interpretation than having the balls to say it's the same Batman as Dark Knight Returns and Year One and all my other critically acclaimed Batman stories. Yeah, same guy. But if you ignore all of that and you think of him, if you think of the character as Linkara says, Crazy Steve, someone who stole the Batman suit, the Bat suit, honestly, you'll enjoy this book a lot better than anyone else, and anyone else than others have. Like Linkara, I honestly think Linkara is too harsh on this book. It is absolutely off the walls in the best way possible. I love it. It's fantastic. And that, as I say, is that. And we're 25 minutes in, not bad.